Hi, I'm Sandra Parker. I want to talk about the difference between what most people think of as anxiety and what I'm talking about when I'm inviting you to feel signal anxiety in your body. An important distinction that I really want to make is between what most people think of as anxiety and what I'm calling signal anxiety. What most people think of as anxiety is what I'm labeling pathological anxiety. It's the kind of stuff that shows up in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, when people really have a problem with anxiety. Things like chronic worry, or obsessing about things, or panicking. But even at a milder level, that same critter, where people are ruminating and fretting, that kind of energy is not at all what I'm talking about when I'm directing attention to this signal for growth that I'm calling signal anxiety. This is such an important distinction. I really want to take some time with it because signal anxiety is healthy and normal. It's built into us, into each and every one of us, into the very fiber of our being. It's in our muscles, it's in our breath, it's in our bloodstream. Signal anxiety is a communication from the body that tells us the most important human truth of all, that we're vulnerable. And if we're connected, we should be experiencing that throughout the day, in little ways and not so little ways, up and down throughout the day. Little signals of, I want something and I'm not the boss. At least I'm not the boss in an absolute, ultimate way. I don't have complete and utter control over the outcome. If I'm connected with reality, that fact is there throughout my day in an ongoing way, in little ways and big ways. That's healthy, that's normal, that's just the truth. Pathological anxiety, the kind of anxiety most people think about, worry, is really a way of leaving the body. Signal anxiety is all about being in the body, feeling that little message in the body. Worry, fretting, ruminating, all of the control strategies that go with that, those are all ways of leaving the discomfort of the truth of the vulnerability and trying to come up with a solution so I don't have to feel that. If I can anticipate every possible negative outcome, if I can fret about any number of different things and then possibly come up with a solution for those terrible things, then maybe I don't have to feel this discomfort. And so I stay very busy in this world of ideas, a world of what ifs. But it's not a world of what is. I've moved away from what is. I've moved away from what is in my body. I've moved away from the signal of the truth in order to not feel the discomfort of that. But instead I've created this nightmare world of what if this and what if that and what if this and what if that. And it keeps me very busy and it's very unpleasant. And it's so key to make this distinction here because a number of people that I'm communicating with about this idea of the key for growth being anxiety, a number of people are people who are in touch with anxiety, but it's this pathological anxiety. And then a number of other people that I talk to, they say, anxiety? I never feel anxious. What are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about, anxiety. That's for anxious people. And both of those groups of people are kind of missing the point. Those who worry and fret and say, I'm anxious all the time. What are you talking about? I feel anxious all the time. I'm always feeling anxiety. What do you mean, tell me feel anxiety? I'm always anxious. Those people aren't feeling anxiety. What they feel is their signal anxiety, and then they jump out into these stories they tell that frighten them. To keep them away from themselves, to keep themselves away from the discomfort, they make up really scary, catastrophic stories. Right? But they're not actually feeling the sensations in their bodies of signal anxiety. And then the other group, the group that's denying, suppressing, not feeling, and actually thinks they never feel anxious, the stoic people who are functioning very well, but completely out of touch with the fact that they're not the boss of everything. Maybe that's not a problem. really, maybe neither of these two groups have a problem until they experience it to be a problem, and that's a fundamental truth in psychotherapy. Until the horse feels thirsty, we're not even going to try to offer them a drink. But for the person who isn't feeling any human vulnerability, great as long as it's working, but the minute they're actually thrust up against the wall of futility, someone they love is dying and they can't fix it, or their marriage is breaking down, or they deeply long for something they can't make happen with all their best efforts. That is an extremely devastating experience for that person. They are not resilient. They do not bounce in those situations, and they come in the door for psychotherapy because they literally fall apart when they're faced with the truth of that. They don't have the kind of bouncy coping and resilience. They're great as long as they can have control, as long as the illusion of control isn't tampered with. So there's a fragility to these stoic people who deny their human vulnerability, who never feel anxious. And more obviously, there's a fragility to people who are overtly anxious. In the pathological way, they're more obviously, you would see them as fragile. And what we're working on in tuning into signal anxiety is developing a bouncy, resilient person, a person who can know that they're vulnerable and yet stay with themselves in that in such a way that they can be dropped down to a deeper level of their resources. And that's dropped down into the wave of emotion, the flow of information and energy going through them, just underneath that signal that tells them they're vulnerable. And so I think if you can really keep clear in your mind that signal anxiety is a healthy, normal communication from your body. It's a phone call just saying the truth about your vulnerability. It's something we all have, we all need, we all benefit from, we all grow from if we can stay with it. It's not a bad thing. It's not something to feel bad about. It's not something that's ever going to go away. It's not meant to go away. You don't want it to go away, right? The last day you're vulnerable is the last day you're alive. And that's different from worry and fretfulness and panic and obsessing and controlling. That distinction is really important. Just want you to take that home with you. Yeah.